So first of all, we're going to just do a short bit of meditation. So finding whatever is your comfortable position. I would recommend either sitting on a chair, or if you're more comfortable doing it, you can sit cross-legged, but sitting on a chair is probably going to work best. We're going to be lying down towards the end, so you might want to reserve that the lying down until you get to the end. So I think everyone here is probably quite familiar with the meditation posture. So starting to bring the awareness inside the body. Letting go of all the things that have happened so far this morning. And letting go of all the things that may or may not happen later on during the day. Just coming into the moment now. If it helps you to do so, you can close the eyes to encourage the senses even more inside the body. Allowing things to settle and calm. And noticing your stable base to start with. Just getting a sense of how you're connected to the ground. When we notice the connection with the ground, how does that make the body and mind feel? Stable base, open, free, upper half of the body. Being inquisitive to everything that's arising and passing, but not getting involved, not holding on. Just allow it to come and go in a flow. And as we tune into perhaps a sense of emptiness, we can start to allow the sense of self to soften. It's not that we're denying a sense of self, it's just that we're perhaps having a different perspective on self. Self as a flow, self as activity, self being unconstrained, not being locked down to a position or locked down to a certain way of acting. Self as flow. Softening that sense of self. And starting to tune into the breath. Nothing to change. Nothing to alter, to try and get involved with, just noticing it. Noticing the flow of breath. Can you get a sense of where the breath comes from and when it returns to? Flow of breath connecting us with the flow of life. And can you get a sense of getting even closer to the breath? As we allow thoughts to arise and pass, can you get a sense of being able to become one with the breath? A sense of the awareness merging with the breath. This is effortless effort, so we're not wishing it to be a certain way, we're just experimenting, just noticing. Merging with breath, merging with life. And as we settle with the breath, perhaps things can start to quieten down. And as they quieten down, you might find that your perception is to take in all kinds of things, able to take in sounds and light. As we flow with the breath, the awareness can start to open up. Flowing with the breath, flowing with life. Perhaps a sense of how this can bring us home. A natural state to occupy. Bringing us home to the moment. There's nothing else we need to do right now. We're just going to try and explore how things are right here and right now and enjoy it as much as possible. So start to bring the awareness to the outer edges of the body. Start to allow the awareness to open out. Perhaps a sense of the breath still moving, still flowing, but opening out the senses to everything around us, bringing the awareness to the edges of the body. You can move the fingers and toes. When you're ready to do so, you can open your eyes. And that's called heart purification, because the idea is that when we get as close as possible to the flow of breath, it kind of has a clearing effect on the heart and the mind. That's the idea with that. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to do a bit of lying down. So if you've got a space that you can go to, it's fairly straightforward stuff, but probably a good idea if you can still see the screen from where you're lying down. Take your time. Get yourselves comfortable. We've moved around there, so just allow the awareness to come back inside the body. Tends to be that when we move around, do other things, we lose track. So bring your awareness back. Sensing inside the body, and see if you can get a global sense of the whole body to begin with. Notice the whole body. Just allowing everything else to arise and pass. Now we're going to take the hands, we're going to place the hands one on top of the other, first of all on the forehead. one on top of the other on the forehead. Just spend a moment with the hands resting on the forehead, noticing the sensations, noticing the breath. Perhaps a sense of how the mind can calm, connecting in with the mind. And then taking the hands, one on top of the other, to the heart center. Taking a few breaths here, connecting, settling. And then finally taking the hands, one on top of the other, to the belly. Resting on the belly. Noticing the breath, perhaps noticing how the breath moves the hands. Connecting, noticing. And you can either leave the hands here or you can take them by the sides, completely up to you, whatever's more comfortable. We're going to start to tune in to different parts of the body. So first of all, bringing the awareness to the face. I'd like you to start to scrunch up the face. Give the whole face a bit of a scrunch and then let it go. Do that 2 or 3 times and just notice as much as possible what's going on when you move the facial muscles, when you squeeze and relax them. Noticing all the muscles. And then relax the face. We're going to come to the eyes. First of all, closing the eyes. And we're going to try moving the eyes left and right with the eyes closed, but we're going to try to do that slowly and try to keep track of the movement. Moving the eyes left and right and just checking the movement, slowly trying to stay in touch with the movement. So during this whole sequence, what we're looking for is any sense of blind spots, any sense of the awareness drifting off. As much as possible, we're going to try and keep the awareness on each and every part of the movement. Not worrying about it, we're not forcing it. And if we notice blind spots, it's quite interesting. Perhaps we can bring a bit more awareness to those blind spots. And now we're going to move the eyes up and down, looking up and down. Eyes are closed. Eyes look down and up. See if you can detect any blind spots. And then resting the eyes. And we're now going to take the tongue and run the tongue over the teeth, the gums, the walls of the mouth, the roof of the mouth. Explore the mouth with the tongue. Just noticing as clearly as possible what you find, allowing everything else to arise and pass. Relax the tongue. You might find it helpful just to leave the tongue relaxed on the roof of the mouth. Then we're going to come to the jaw. Just gently move the jaw around. You might find that you can move it left and right gently. Try and stay connected with the movement. See how it feels in the muscles. And letting go of the jaw. Just going to move the head now. So move the head perhaps left and right. You might find it a bit more difficult to move it up and down, but just move it around on the mat. Notice how it feels. The contact on the head. Try and stay connected with all of the movement. noticing blind spots wherever possible. If you notice a blind spot, try moving a bit more slowly through it. Allowing the head to rest. Opening the eyes. Pick a spot on the ceiling and point at that spot at the ceiling. Take your hand up and point at the spot on the ceiling. Lift it all the way up if you can. Take the hand back down again. Now forget about trying to point at anything and do the same movement, trying to keep connected with the movement itself. So take your finger up. We're not trying to get anywhere. We're trying to allow the awareness to reside in every part of the movement. Staying connected with the whole process. We're not trying to rush towards an end goal. And then when you're ready, you can take that arm down. And we're going to move to the other side. So the other arm, take it up in a similar way, trying to keep connected with the movement itself, noticing what kinds of distractions are arising, allowing them to arise and pass. Bring the arm down with mindfulness. Good. How do the arms feel now? Do they feel similar? If you need to, you could raise one arm or the other arm or both, just to get a sense of evenness between the two arms. Just experiment with that, but try and do it mindfully. Try and keep the awareness on the hands and arms. Perhaps taking them both up. Keep the awareness on each part of the movement, bring them both down. So we have a tendency to cut the awareness off, to cut the awareness short once we feel like we've done something, to then release the awareness. So if you notice that happening, just try and stay connected with the whole movement. And then we're going to take the arms out to the sides. And just try raising and hands and arms stay connected with the ground. We're going to try and bring them up and down. This would be like the upper half of the angel creation in snow, if that makes sense. So the arms and hands are going to slide along the ground. And again, just play with the movement and see if you can stay connected with it. Arms and backs of the arms, backs of the hands stay connected with the floor, and they just slide up and down. Slide up towards the head, slide down towards the pelvis. Stay connected. And when you're ready to do so, just leaving the arms in a comfortable position, and we're going to try to lift up one shoulder off the mat. You probably won't be able to lift it up very far. Just explore lifting up one shoulder. Bring it back down again, trying to keep the awareness rooted to the movement. And then try and lift up the other shoulder. Just exploring what's possible. Remember, we're enjoying what we can do rather than worrying about what we can't do. You might like to try just mindfully shrugging the shoulders. Notice how that feels. And then bring the feet to be flat on the floor. So the knees are going to be coming up. Yeah, good. And then just try moving around the pelvis. Try moving mindfully around with the pelvis. Notice how the pelvis feels. You might like to try and pick the pelvis up slightly. Maybe you'd like to try picking up one side and the other. How does the pelvis feel? Try and keep the awareness rooted on all of the movement. And then we're going to take the knees back to a neutral position, and we're just very gently going to see how it feels to drop the knees to one side and then the other. Being mindful of any pains that you might feel, just not going too far. Try dropping them to one side and then the other. Trying to keep connected with the movement. And then coming back to a resting point. If you need to be seated during this, it's fine to just move the knees left and right. We're going to do something where we pick up the foot in a minute. If you're seated, then you could just slide the foot along the ground. So first of all, bringing the knee slightly up, choose a leg, bring the knee up first. And then start to raise the foot. So we're going to try and have a sense of pointing the toe up towards the ceiling. Don't worry about how straight or bent the leg is, just explore the movement. Try and stay with the whole of the movement. If you're seated, just pointing the foot out in front of you, good. And then bring that foot down, bring it down mindfully. Try and stay connected with the movement. Good. And then going to the other side. Knee up first. And then straighten the leg, point with the toes. Wherever you're going to is absolutely fine. Don't push it. And then bring it back mindfully into place. Stay with the movement. Good. And then just try wiggling the toes mindfully. Nice and slowly. Some of those toes are going to feel like blind spots. And then wiggle around the fingers mindfully. Good. So we've just gone through the body and tried to keep the awareness on what movement is possible. We're now going to try getting up, but I want you to try getting up as mindfully as possible. So you might be rolling over to one side, you might be pushing through the hands. Take your time, really slow it down. Try and stay connected with the whole movement. Try and notice the whole movement. Take your time. As mindful as possible, coming to a full standing position. So standing, how do you feel now? How do all the different parts of the body feel?
Grounded.
Grounded, good. And you might like to just check in with how your balance feels in this standing position. So just slightly come forwards onto the toes and rock back onto the heels. And come to the midpoint. How mindfully can you stand? How can you let go of needing to do anything at all in this position? What's the easiest way of standing? We're now going to do just a very small amount of release of the body, but we're going to do this mindfully as well. We're not going to do it in a formatted way. So I'd just like you to start moving mindfully. Try and stay connected with the movement. And try and notice where it is that you feel like movement is going to be beneficial. If you feel like there's an area you want to work into, can you work into it mindfully? But then when you leave that area, can you also leave it mindfully? Trying to notice any blind spots, trying to notice when your attention wanders off. Gently bringing it back to the little movements that we're making just to open out the body. Good. And then we're going to just start to, Carol's already started to do it by the looks of things. We're going to start a mindful yawn. That looked like it was the beginning of a mindful yawn there, Carol. So try and just get a sense of yawning, but doing it mindfully. You know, that kind of yawning stretch that we're so used to doing. Can you keep your awareness on the full movement? Use the breath. When we yawn open to the world, we're naturally bringing air into the body. And then we relax again, we breathe out. This is exactly what we're aiming for in our Qigong practice, this sense of opening up the body mindfully with the breath and then relaxing mindfully. Do that a few times. And perhaps noticing if you get any sense of a connection with the outside world when you're doing this. A natural yawn can be very powerful to connect us with a sense of life. Bring the hands down towards the belly now. Resting here. Feeling the belly move with the breath. Allow everything else to arise and pass. Just notice the breath, the natural flow of breath that we can become one with. And we're going to bring the hands out slightly on an in-breath. And bring them back in towards the belly on an out-breath. Can you stay with that movement? In-breath and out-breath. This is opening up the body. And then this is relaxing the body. But can you stay with the movement? Stay with the breath. Are there blind spots? Are there regular areas that you want to drift away and follow some thought or feeling or plan? Just bring the awareness gently back to the breath and movement. We could start to go a bit bigger with the hands. Feel like the breath is moving more deeply in and out of the body, but still trying to connect with the movement and the breath. Connecting with a sense of how it can all flow. Good. Bring the arms down, Gently bring the arms down by the sides. Now, hopefully you've got a little bit of space that you can work with this. Just check that your balance feels good. We're just going to try walking very mindfully forwards. So really slowly take that foot, bring it up. Notice how far the knee comes. Come down with the foot. Notice where the foot contacts with the floor. Notice how you roll your weight over that foot. Notice how the weight shifts. Notice how the back foot starts to come up onto the toes. And then bring the knee into action and step again. So really slowly and carefully, we're not going anywhere. We're exploring the movement. Noticing as many aspects of the movement as possible, particularly the way that the foot is contacting. Feeling the muscles at work. You might even get a sense of the bones in action as the foot flexes. And then standing still. Notice how it feels to stand still again. And then we're going to start walking backwards. So take the foot backwards, slow it down. Notice what the difference is. Notice how the weight shifts. Notice what the body needs to do. As we slow this movement down, walking backwards in particular, you might notice how unsteady it feels at times, how much that we take for granted of our balance. As much detail as you can. Not taking it too seriously, not worrying too much about it, just enjoying tuning into that movement. It's a lovely opportunity to experiment with things that happen every day that we don't normally take the time to notice. And then standing still a moment, noticing how that feels. And now we're going to bring this mindful movement into action with walking meditation. This is something that I encourage people to do on coursework, but we rarely actually get a chance to experiment with. So probably easiest if we take the hands over the belly while we're doing this. They might come a little bit lower than normal. And all we're going to do is we're going to walk around in a circle, but we're going to do that really slowly and mindfully. So notice how it feels to put the foot down, to move the weight, bring the other foot into action. So whatever space that you've got, just working with that space. If it needs to be very small circles, then make it very small circles, doesn't matter. Not wanting our walk to be a certain way, just noticing every step. Noticing all of the actions in the foot, in the leg, the sensations. And if there's room in the awareness, you can also notice the breath. There's so much here to focus on with the awareness that we can use this like quite a tight version of a meditation. Anything else distracts us, we just come back to the breathing, the feelings on the feet, the noticing of the balance, of the weight shift. If you notice any form of resistance, any form that the mind needs to or wants to go off and do anything else, that's fine. Just notice it and come back to the movement and the breath. Walking in circles, nowhere to get to. And perhaps you can notice a kind of background sense of how this can drop us into that flow of life. Good. And starting to make your way back to your comfortable standing position, wherever that might be. We're just going to play around with a bit of a feeling of our weight, of our balance. So take the hands behind the back. Just hold the wrist with one hand. And all we're going to do is we're going to circle the weight around the feet. Slow it right down. Notice how the weight of the body shifts around the feet. Just bringing as much of the awareness into the feet as possible. Trying to stay connected with that sense of movement. When we connect in deeply with what's going on, how does that make the body and the mind feel? Switch directions. Around the edges. Noticing how the feet feel. Noticing the balance. And then coming back to center. We're going to come up onto the toes. And then come back slightly to the heels. So rocking forwards and backwards as far as is comfortable in both directions. Slowing the movement down if possible. It's a bit tricky to slow down the backward movement, but just seeing what you can work with as you come through the heels. The toes might very briefly come off. Slowing it right down, noticing as much of the movement as possible. And then bring the weight up onto the edges of the feet. Side to side. Slowing it down, seeing how it feels. And then coming back to your central position. Rocking backwards and forwards if you need to. Drop the hands down by the sides. Try and get a sense of where you feel most balanced. You can sway left and right, forwards and backwards, just to tune into that really balanced central point. When you hit that balanced central point, how does the rest of the body feel? When you hit that balance point, let go of the weight through the feet. Allow the spine to elongate. Crown of the head naturally grows. Let go of any tension in the knees and the pelvis and the belly. And using that balance point, we're just going to step the foot out and slide the other one along to meet it. And then go the other way. Mindful step, slide. Mindful step and slide. Okay, and then coming back to center, we're going to slide, we're going to take the foot out to one side. We're going to bring this foot in using a slide. We're going to bring the knee up. We're going to bring the hand up. And we're going to push down with the other hand. Then we're going to slide to the other side. Bring that knee up. Hand comes up. Hand pushes down. So we're not worried at all about whether or not the balance is good. We're just noticing. If we let go of the desire for this to be a certain way, what happens to our sense of balance? Does it become easier? Does it become harder? So tuning into the movement, just enjoying it for what it is. Letting go of any need to get anywhere at all, and just noticing if that has any effect on what we're doing with the balance. Good. And now we're going to play with a movement that we use quite a lot, which is the opposite circles. So again, awareness inside, but there's no end goal to this. We're experimenting with it, and we're seeing whether or not that experimenting with it changes how we feel about this movement. So the knee comes up and circles backwards. That's one part, and then we can circle it forwards. So let's just do that to start with. Switch the weight. So circle backwards with the opposite knee, and then circle forwards. And the other part of this is the arm movement. So circle the arm backwards, and then circle the arm forwards. Trying to do this mindfully. Just enjoying it for what it is. The other side. And forwards. Good. So shift the weight. Take your time. And we're going to come up with one knee and use the opposite hand. So circles backwards. Mindful of the movement, not needing it to be any way. And then circle forwards. Effortless effort, just noticing as much detail as possible. And then the other side, knee up, arm out, circle backwards. And then circle forwards. Good. So the idea with that movement is that we're bringing together the two sides of the brain, and we're going to repeat that process using centering as well. So hand comes to cup in front of the belly. The other hand's going to come up, and then it's going to come down the midline. And then the hands switch. So simple movement. See if you can keep the awareness going on the movement. Notice anywhere where you feel like it's drifting off, where there's a blind spot. And particularly when you come down with the hand, noticing how that makes the body feel. So we'll do that a couple of times, as mindfully as possible. And then we can add the breath in, but try and keep the awareness on as much of the movement as possible. So breathing in and then breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. Awareness encompassing the movement as much as possible, the flow of breath as much as possible. And as we do that, just having a background sense of how that focusing on the movement and the breath can just allow us to tune into perhaps an empty sense of flowing of life. Good. One more time. And we're now going to try a couple of different Qigong sequences with exactly the same process at their heart. So these should be things that you're probably quite familiar with in our practice. So the first one I want to do is just the bare breathing technique. So take the feet wide, have a slight bend in the knees, relax the pelvis. So bare breath is just a sense of bringing the hands up and then pushing them back down again. So perhaps feeling like there's some sort of resistance in that, but the main thing is we're trying to keep the awareness on the movement. Where are the blind spots? And add in the breath. This breathe in, perhaps having a sense of encouraging the breath up. Breathe out, sense it can push back down again. So how much of the breath and how much of the movement can you tune into? And then we can add the moon being pushed into this. So this, bring the moon up to start with, heavy, and then we push the moon out in front of us. So around the level of the belly, no need to come up too high. We push the moon out in front. We turn the hands so they wrap around this ball of the moon. We bring it in and we push it down. So a very simple movement. Tune into the breath, breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in as you bring it back in. Breathe out as you push it down. Very simple. Can you keep the awareness on as much of the movement and the breath as possible? Let's do one more. Just enjoying what we can do, not worrying about what we can't. And I thought we could bring the bird sequence into this from the animals section. So the bird, we use the two middle fingers together. The little finger and the index finger are quite nice and apart. There's a sense of freedom, of openness here. And then the thumb pushes out to the side. So this is the idea with this is that this is the wing tip of the bird. Okay. So the first movement, we bring the hands as if they're forming a beak. Yeah. And we push the hands down. As we push the hands down, we bend through the knees. As the hands come up, they flex to point the fingers downwards, and we bend slightly forwards. Then we drop back down through the knees. Now, as we do this, we shift the weight to one side, and then we bring the hands out, and the foot that's free comes back slightly. Good. And then the hands come down. They come up. They come down. Remember, this is a bird, so we can move with that lovely fluid movement. And then we come out to the side. Good. So I think this is a really nice one to feel into that sense of flow, freedom of movement, freedom of breath. Out to the side. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. So nice and slow, try and stay connected with as much of the detail as possible. Bring the hands down. And then we're going to come to our second bird movement. The fingertips come towards each other. They point towards each other, they don't touch. The arms are out in front of the body, the hands are not touching. We're getting a sense of a nice shape in the arms, almost like another description of emptiness in the arms. So again, we shift the weight to one side. You can bend the knees slightly, the fingertips are towards each other. And then we can bring the knee up with the hands. We float the hands down. We don't shift the weight. The fingertips point at each other again. And then this time we're going to bring the knee up again, bring the hands up again, but the hands are going to come all the way above the head. You can touch the backs of the hands if you want to, and then come back down again. So here we can shift the weight. And then come to the other side, knee up. Bring the knee down. Don't shift the weight. Fingertips all the way up. So with the breath, breathing out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Know where to get to with this. Just noticing as much of the detail as possible. I think the bird is a really nice example of how we can discover the feeling of flow in this movement, the feeling of flowing with life. Stay with the movement, stay with the breath. regular standing position for a moment. Allow things to calm and settle. So flow of movement and breath. We're going to just do a small sequence of the 5 elements. So again, can you tune in to the movement and the breath as much as possible? Okay, so the 5 elements, we'll take a short tour of them first. Fingertips are going to start to come towards each other. They rise up. Yeah, the hands rise up around the level of the chest. The hands turn. We're describing a ball, not just with the hands, but with the arms as well. And then we can drop down through the knees. So fingertips up, hands turn, describe your ball. That's the first part. Second part is that the hands come towards each other, the wrists cross, they don't touch. Hands float up, float out to the sides, come back down again, drop back through the knees slightly. Cross with the wrists, float the hands, come out to the sides, float back down again. That floating back down again, remember to keep the awareness in that point too as well. And then the third movement is our arms raise up as if they're on top of a wave. And they float back down again. Try and connect with both the moving up and down motion. Up and down. Good. And the last part, bring the fists in, sides of the body. Good. And then push out with the hands. Bring the fists in, push out with the hands. Good, so let's put it together. Bring the hands down, breathe in, hands come up, they turn, breathe out, we describe our ball. Wrists cross, float, stay connected with the awareness. Float the arms. Stay connected with the downward movement as well. Hands into the sides. Push. Let's do that one more time. Just go with the flow. And bring the hands down. Good. So when you're ready to do so, you can start to make your way back down into a lying down position. If you prefer to do this seated, you can do this seated, but otherwise lying down and getting comfortable. bringing the awareness back inside the body. Allowing things to settle. Making any last mindful movements that you need to make. Noticing those movements as much as possible still. Closing the eyes. Noticing how supported the body is now. Allowing all things to arise and pass, and just noticing the connection between the floor and the body. How does it feel to be supported completely by the floor? What are the sensations of contact like? But also, how does it make the whole body and mind feel when we connect in with being supported by the ground? Starting to notice the breath again. Perhaps starting to notice how the breath can move gently in and out of the belly. Noticing breath sensations deep inside the body. And we're just going to begin by setting up our sense of an inner resource, something that's always there for us. So bring to mind a place where you feel completely safe and secure. Could be anywhere at all, could be a place in nature or somewhere from your past, could be a room in a house, could be a holiday. Take your time, see what suggests itself to you right here and now. Is there somewhere that you can take the mind where you feel completely safe and comfortable? Somewhere you're able to be yourself, a sense of being able to connect in with life here. And if you found that place, try and fill in some details. Try and bring it alive. Try and notice details, as many as possible. Shapes, objects, colours, sounds, tastes, whatever it is. Feel into that place. And if it's helpful to do so, you could bring in someone or a pet to make it feel even more special, even more comfortable. We can let go of the idea of that place and just notice how it's made the body feel. How does the body feel connecting in with that inner resource? How does the body feel now? Notice as many details as possible. Your inner resource, somewhere that you can come back to at any point when you need to feel more stable, more comfortable, able to flow with life. Allow it to sink in. Noticing once again sensations of the body. Noticing sensations in the lips, in the mouth, bringing the awareness up to the ears, inside and outside of the ears. Awareness of the jaw. Awareness of the face, of the cheeks, the temples, the eyebrows, the eyes. Awareness of the whole of the face. Sliding the awareness over the forehead, to the crown of the head, noticing the sides of the head, noticing the back of the head. Awareness now of the whole head, the whole of the head. Nothing to change, nothing to do, just noticing. Slight new awareness down over the neck, the back of the neck, the sides of the neck, the throat, the top of the chest, the top of the back, and the shoulders, noticing the shoulders, left and right. Bring the awareness down into the upper parts of the arms, and then the elbows, the lower parts of the arms, the wrists, noticing both hands, the back of the hands, the palms, both thumbs, all of the fingers, just noticing. Let's bring both arms and hands together at the same time, noticing both hands and arms at the same time. Awareness back to the shoulders. And then slide the awareness down to the chest and the rib cage. The front of the rib cage. The sides of the rib cage. The back of the rib cage. The whole of the rib cage. Noticing the spine. Running the awareness up and down the whole of the spine. Bringing the awareness down to the lower part of the back. The waist on both sides. The belly, the whole of the belly. Awareness of the whole torso now. Noticing the pelvis. front of the pelvis, the back of the pelvis, and the hips. Bringing the awareness down into the upper parts of the legs, the knees, the lower parts of the legs, both ankles, both feet, all of the toes. Awareness now of both legs and feet together at the same time. Legs and feet together in awareness. Bring the awareness out slightly and notice the whole body now connected up together, the whole body in awareness. Feet, legs, pelvis, torso, hands and arms, neck, head, face, all together in awareness. And within that sense of the whole body, noticing the breath moving in and out. Breath flowing in and out of the whole body. Enjoying the natural flow of life. Letting go into a sense of being. Whole body. Flowing breath. Gentle sense of being. Dissolving into awareness itself. Embodying that sense of flow, that sense of being. And bringing the awareness to the dark space in front of the closed eyes. Friendly darkness in which anything at all can arise and pass. Form and dissolve, shapes, patterns, colours. And on those screens, those dark screens, start to imagine yourself on a beach, deserted beach. Bring that beach to life. Notice the waves and the sea, the shore, the sky, and the sun. Notice the sun. Notice the warmth of the sun. And just enjoy the sense of warmth, of energy from the sun. Warm energy of the sun. Enjoying how that feels on the body and perhaps noticing how it might feel inside the body. Enjoying the sun's energy. Noticing the sea. Is there a sense that you can take energy from the water? How might water energy be taken into the body? How might that feel? And we're going to start to leave the beach and start to walk inland. And we're going to come into a rainforest. Starting to come into a rainforest. Noticing the green colours, the sounds, the moisture. How would it feel to take in a feeling of energy from nature in this place? Natural energy from the rainforest, enjoying that sense within the body. We're going to leave behind the rainforest now, starting to walk out of the rainforest. And we're going to start to take ourselves up a mountain. Right up to the peak of the mountain. All the way to the summit. How might the energy feel on top of this mountain? Endless sky, being able to see for miles. Enjoying any sense that we can of energy, mountain energy. And allowing the night to start to fall. Allowing it to get dark, the sun to go down, and the stars to start to come out. Looking up into the dark sky with all the uncountable number of stars. Is there any sense that you can get of energy from the universe that you could bring inside the body? Sense of the energy of the universe filling the body. And letting go of all of those places, just coming back inside the body and noticing how it feels now, noticing perhaps a sense of the energy of life going on inside the body. Allow it all to sink in. And starting to visualize now how it might feel to go about the rest of your day, flowing with life. Perhaps a sense of that emptiness that we've dropped in and out of during our session. How would it be to go around for the rest of the day feeling connected with that sense of flow? Knowing that any time you would like to, you can allow things to start to drop away and connect back in with life. How would that feel? Knowing that you can return to the flow of life. Bringing the awareness back to sensations inside the body. Noticing them perhaps deep inside the body. And then starting to bring the awareness to the edges of the body, to the surface of the body. As the awareness rises to the surface, our senses can start to open back out to life. Noticing warmth or coolness. Noticing sounds. Noticing light and shadow across the eyelids. Becoming comfortable with the flow of life. And bringing the awareness into the fingers and toes. And mindfully starting to move the fingers and toes. Doing that mindfully. And then we can start to move the rest of the body mindfully. Start to wake the body up mindfully. Stay with the movement. When you're ready to do so, you can roll over to one side. Just use that opportunity to let go of any last tensions. Enjoy that sense of the body being supported. And then when you're ready, you can push up with the hands. Come to a comfortable seated position. Remaining mindful of our movement. We're going to take our hands and we're going to rub some warmth into the palms of the hands. Place them over the eyes. Take a moment to enjoy the warmth from the hands moving into the eyes. And then gently lift the palms away, keeping the fingers where they are, starting to drum over the top of the head with the fingers. Back of the head, sides of the head, the ears, the neck, the jaw, the cheeks, perhaps the temples. Then we're going to have a sense of washing fresh energy over the face. So take the hands, washing fresh energy. Take the fingers out. Just have a sense of being able to flick out through the fingers any spent energy. Come back to the breath, come back to the moment. If you'd like to, you can have your hands in prayer position. And that's the end of our practice today.